Welcome, everybody, to the Tuesday night edition of the Grand Dark Conspiracy. If you're just tuning into the Grand Dark Conspiracy this Tuesday evening, you may have missed a fantastic show in the Mallard Report, and you may have missed the chance to get down and listen to some great music with Eric Schultzes and the Sharkbait Boogie. This past week, Jim had Dr. Kimberly on, and it was a great show. If you're going to come back next week, you might want to come back around 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to check out Jim's show. And if you want to come out even earlier to hang out with the people of Shark Radio Network, you can do that at about 7 p.m. and you can listen to some great tunes spun by Eric. Tonight we've got a great show, and I'm always excited to bring on new guests as well as the old guests. But tonight we've got kind of a new guest, but it's somebody you've heard quite frequently here on the Grand Dark Conspiracy. Tonight's guest is Lyle Blackburn. Lyle is a frequent contributor and the cryptozoology advisor to the magazine Rue Morgue, which is a horror media publication. It's in print today. It's actually pretty much available anywhere that you can find magazines. But we're not going to be talking about that tonight. We're going to be talking about his new book, The Beast of Boggy Creek, the true story of the Fouke Monster. And if any of you, grew up in the 70s, 80s, or 90s, you probably have heard about the Beast of Boggy Creek, or the Legend of Boggy Creek, which was a pretty popular movie back in the day. And as I said, you've heard Lyle here on the Grand Dark Conspiracy probably rather frequently. Unbeknownst to me, as I was booking him, he is the founder and frontman of the Texas-based rock band Ghoultown. So this should be an interesting discussion tonight. He's quite a busy guy, and so I'm very happy to have him on the program. You want to find out more about Lyle, you want to get a hold of his book, The Beast of Boggy Creek, the true story of the Fouke Monster. Hope I'm saying that correctly. I'm sure if not, he will correct me. You can go to granddarkconspiracy.com. There's links for you to be able to go grab his book. Of course, I'll be playing some of his music tonight from Ghoultown. There are links up there as well, directly into Amazon, so you can download those for, I think, about 99 cents a piece. As well as links to his websites and his several other endeavors. So that's who we've got lined up for tonight. We've got some great guests coming on next week. On next Monday, we'll have Mike Peralta on, and he will be talking about his book, The Hell Testimonies. So that should be a really hot show for you all to tune into. We're talking about hell. So it should be fairly interesting, and it's slightly controversial because I know a lot of people out there don't actually even think one exists. But that being said, it should be a great time, a great discussion. And then we'll be talking end times again with Dr. Joy Pugh next Tuesday. So that's what we've got coming up next week. Of course, tonight it's Lyle Blackburn. We're going to be talking about Boggy Creek and the Fouke Monster at about 10:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So in roughly 14 minutes, Lyle will be on. And you'll have the opportunity, obviously, to get in on the conversation if you're in the chat room on sharkradionetwork.com. You have any questions for Lyle that you want me to ask, go ahead and post them up in the chat room, and I will certainly do my darndest to make sure that I ask them. So that's what we've got going on tonight. Just checking something here really quickly. Of course, tomorrow, I know I've been saying this for 2 weeks, but things have been insane. But tomorrow I will have a new blog post up on the gdc.ning.com, and it will be concerning folklore and how it pertains to the paranormal. So that should be an interesting read. That's where I post my personal thoughts and views on the paranormal. Don't broadcast them so much here because I want it to be about the guests. So if you want to get involved in that, that's the social network of the Grand Dark Conspiracy. That's easy enough for you to do. Go over and sign up. That's thegdc.ning.com. There's links up, of course, at granddarkconspiracy.com. But I will also post it here in the chat room for you all. That's the link to the social network of the Grand Dark Conspiracy. But there's other ways to get involved. Obviously, we're on Facebook, facebook.com/Grand Dark Conspiracy. You can message me, you can post on my wall, do whatever you want there. Or you could always take the old-fashioned way and email me. That's webmaster@Grand Dark Conspiracy. Yeah, go on out there. Dr. Kimberly is a part of it. Mallard, the Duckman, Jim Mallard is as well. So come on out and share your thoughts on the paranormal with other Grand Dark Conspiracy listeners on the Ning Network. Well, we're going to go ahead and hand over the broadcast to our good friend Dave Considine. He's going to bring you this day in paranormal history. I do want to kind of caution other people. Tonight's particular episode of this day in paranormal history, it's a little rough. It might be a little scary, and just he wanted me to warn everybody. So here you go. Handing it over to Dave. We'll pay a few bills, and we'll be back around 10:20 with Lyle Blackburn.
Good evening. Welcome to this day in paranormal history. I'm religious demonologist Dave Considine, and every week I'll be bringing you something fascinating about our paranormal past. The Night Stalker. Richard Ramirez, dubbed the Night Stalker by the press for his nocturnal style of killing, held the city of Los Angeles in the grip of fear during the early 80s, at the start of what was called the Satanic Panic. So how is this paranormal, you may ask? Well, it's because Richard Ramirez worshipped the devil, and he fully believed that he was guided by the forces of darkness. Ramirez's killing spree began in June of 1984, when the self-proclaimed Satanist tortured and stabbed to death a 79-year-old woman, whose home he had been burglarizing. According to the author, Philip Carlos's book, The Night Stalker, quote, he became angry after not finding anything of value to steal, and he began stabbing the sleeping woman, eventually slitting her throat. The act of killing aroused him sexually, and he had sex with the corpse before leaving the house, end quote. However, it wasn't until this date, March 20th, 1985, when he abducted and assaulted a young girl who survived and became a key witness. She was able to give a good description of her attacker, finally giving a face to the killer. And it was from this day on, he was dubbed by the media as the Night Stalker. Ramirez was born on February 29th, 1960, in El Paso, Texas, and is the youngest of 6 children. He was described by his father as being a good boy, but at the age of 12 that changed, when he found a new hero, his cousin Mike. Mike shared with young Richard gruesome pictures of rape and human torture that he brought back from his tour in Vietnam. Richard became fascinated with the pictorial brutality. The two spent a lot of time together, smoking pot, talking about war. Then on one particular day, Mike's wife began to complain about Mike's laziness, and his reaction was to kill her by shooting her in her face, covering young Ramirez in her blood. Ramirez was only 12 when he was exposed to the violent pictures and the murder. During his teen years, Richard became heavily involved with drugs. He began reading about the subjects of Satanism and the occult. He was especially fascinated with the writings of Aleister Crowley and Anton LaVey, the founder of the Church of Satan in San Francisco. As a matter of fact, he attempted to join the Church of Satan, but eventually was thrown out and went on to become what he termed a lone practitioner. Ramirez's killing spree continued, and on March 27, 1985, he murdered 64-year-old Vincent Zazara, and then stabbed to death his 44-year-old wife, Maxine. Maxine Zazara's murder was particularly gruesome, because Ramirez went on to carve out her eyes. A couple of days later, on March 29, He attacked Melville Keller and her sister, beating them both with a hammer. He carved a pentagram into Keller's thigh and used her blood to draw another pentagram on the wall of the bedroom. The next day, Ruth Wilson, 41, was bound and sexually assaulted by Ramirez, while her 12-year-old son was locked in a closet. Ramirez slashed Wilson once, and then bound her and her son together and fled. During June and July, Richard Ramirez went into the homes of 3 other people and killed them by slitting their throats and beating the other to death. On August 24th, Ramirez shot a 29-year-old man and raped his fiancée. The man survived despite a gunshot wound to the head and was able to give a description of both Richard Ramirez and the station wagon he was driving. A teenager later spotted the car that she had seen on the news and managed to write down part of the license plate number. The stolen car was tracked, and fingerprints were obtained that belonged to Richard Ramirez. His mugshot for previous arrests were released and was plastered all over every form of media in the country. The day after the mugshots were released, Richard Ramirez was recognized when he was trying to steal a car. A group of people from the neighborhood attacked him. Police broke up the crowd, and he was arrested. Richard Ramirez's trial seemed eerily similar to Manson's trial, with women hanging around, clad in black robes. Ramirez's followers lined up around the building just for a chance to get a glimpse of him, and the courtroom was always packed with his admirers. When one of the jurors failed to show up one day and was discovered dead in her apartment from a gunshot wound, many wondered if one of Ramirez's followers were responsible. But in actuality, it was the woman's boyfriend who killed her during an argument that erupted while discussing Ramirez's case. In 1985, the phrase "Hail Satan" received national news coverage around the country when Ramirez shouted "Hail Satan" as he was led from the courtroom while raising his hand with the pentagram drawn upon his palm. On September 20th, 1989, the Night Stalker Richard Ramirez was found guilty of 43 counts in Los Angeles County, including 13 murders, and charges including burglary, sodomy, and rape. He was sentenced to death on each count of murder. Currently, Ramirez is in San Quentin prison, where he sits on death row. In closing, here is a brief clip of an interview by reporter Mike Watkins with Richard Ramirez shortly after his 14th murder conviction in 1989, while he was being held in a San Francisco prison holding facility.
Do you worship the devil? Have you ever studied Satanism? Have you studied, just yes or no, have you studied Satanism?
Yes, I have.
Are you a worshiper of the devil?
Well, Satanist admits to being evil.
Do you admit to being evil, Richard?
We are all evil in some form or another. Are we not?
I'm asking you the questions, my friend.
Yes, I am evil.
And that's your paranormal history for Tuesday, March 20th, 27 years ago today. I'm Dave Considine, and thanks for listening to the Grand Dark Conspiracy. For further information on this and other subjects, please feel free to check out the Grand Dark Conspiracy's past guest list at www.granddarkconspiracy.com. And don't forget to check out the GDC on the Ning Network at thegdc.ning.com.
It's my pleasure to be bringing on to the Grand Dark Conspiracy the author of The Beast of Boggy Creek, the true story of the Fouke Monster, Lyle Blackburn. I hope I'm saying that correctly, the Fouke Monster, but I don't know. I figure you can correct me if I'm wrong. Welcome to the Grand Dark Conspiracy, Lyle. It's a pleasure to have you on.
The Fouke, it's Fouke, to be technical, but you're pretty close. Most people butcher it, so it's a tricky word.
All right. I figured I would butcher it. I mean, that's, I'm familiar with the Beast of Boggy Creek, and I obviously I watched Legend of Boggy Creek when I was younger, and it was, a nice little horror movie and all that stuff. But, the book you have is about kind of the true story about the Fouke Monster. Is there a huge difference between what showed up in the movie and what actually happened?
Well, actually not too much of a difference as far as what the movie covers. A lot of people are kind of under the impression that the movie, a lot of it was made up or overly embellished, which I found really not to be the case. But the history of Fouke Monster, the movie kind of takes place in the early 70s, and that's when it was sort of brought into the media, and that's what brought Charles Pierce down there to investigate and to eventually do the movie. But the creature has a history going way back, as early as like 1908, and of course, on the other hand, a lot of people think, that all happened back in the 70s. Well, there's been sightings that have been going on ever since, and even up till recently. I mean, I just investigated another one last weekend, but many of the newer sightings are even more amazing than what you see in the movie. So, and by saying true story of the Fouke Monster, I just kind of wanted to make sure it was known to be a nonfiction work and the history instead of, any kind of a Legend of Boggy Creek, embellishment.
That makes a great deal of sense to have done that. You just mentioned that you have recently just wrapped up an investigation into the Fouke Monster, which, is kind of shocking to think about. Like you said, people kind of tend to think that, the movie was over and not much has happened since. I mean, what was the nature of the report that put you back in the field to investigate?
Well, ever since news of my book has been out there, of course, inevitably, I'm already getting more sightings than I wish I would have had these for a book. And in fact, I thought, I've covered it all. There'll be nothing else I can do, but I'm already seeing a part 2, and I haven't even barely got the first one out. But there was a sighting. Now, the sighting actually happened last September, but the girl just came forward, and I think she had been watching Finding Bigfoot, and, with those kind of shows on, the more they're out there, people are kind of willing to come forward and say stuff, because it seems to be, at least a little more acceptable. And she basically saw it pretty near the outskirts of Fouke, near one of the bayous that runs down there in the bottomlands, near the county roads out there, and basically was driving at about midnight, came over a hill. She saw a tall, kind of silhouetted figure over to the left, standing by a hay bale. And as she approached, she could definitely see that it was, hairy, about 7 feet tall, and fitting the description of what you would think a Bigfoot or a Fouke Monster would look like. And as she got a little bit closer, the thing literally just ran across the road, within like 3 feet of her car, jumped over a fence, and just disappeared into the brush beyond. So kind of one of those typical sightings, but typical for the Fouke Monster as well because it moved quickly, kind of had long hair, and was tall but not as bulky as you would think a Bigfoot would be typically. So.
A question came up here really quickly. I kind of want to get to. I mean, and we'll kind of start to kind of dig in what you kind of found with your investigation, if that's all right.
Yeah.
The question that came up is: are the foot tracks that you have seen predominantly 5-toed or 3-toed?
Well, you know that's one of the pivotal discussions about the Fouke Monsters is the 3-toed, alleged 3 toes, because back in the 70s they found some quite striking tracks, and that's in the movie, and they had 3 toes. I found a few other reports back in the day that described 3-toed impression, but I also found reports of 5 toes, and I found a guy who actually had a pretty good cast of a 5-toed track. So my judgment and conclusion basically on that is it's quite possible that one of the 3-toed track incidents was hoaxed, and that sort of gave the rep that it had 3 toes. In many cases, it never really, they didn't find tracks, so there could have been other 5-toed tracks. They just didn't find them. Most people that have looked for tracks recently didn't find any, so I think it's still out. The jury's still out on that. But I mean, I just personally don't believe that these kind of creatures would have 3 toes. So it's either an accident, a coincidence, or maybe it walks in such a way that only 3 toes register. It's hard to say, but I've seen all configurations.
Okay, so with the investigation that you did about this report that this girl brought in at around September, did you get to find anything particularly interesting in it? Like anything that took back that, maybe supported even more the existence of a Fouke Monster or a Bigfoot in that region?
Well, the main thing, and a lot of times when you get these reports, I've investigated, and the ones I include in my book, either they came from a historical reference, or when I actually spoke to the witnesses, if I believed them to be credible, then I put the details in the book. In the case of this girl that I just talked to, I found her to be very credible, because, I mean, you could tell that she definitely had seen something. Again, it's hard to prove what she saw, but I have no doubt, and she brought a friend with her. When we went up there to talk to her, we went out to the road where she actually saw it, and she kind of walked us through the sighting. But her friend, just a very sincere girl as well, backed up her story and told us how this girl had called her following the incident because she was, pretty shook up in that whole deal, as anybody might be when they almost run over one of these. And I mean, I just really didn't find any way that these girls could have created some kind of a hoax, and then they're, because they just weren't, trying to pull off something on us. The only thing I think is it was either a hoax played on them or it was the real thing. The place where it jumped over a fence and went into the woods, a person couldn't have even done that. So I got to go with it was a real sighting.
One of the things that, the Boggy Creek is like a huge deal. It's a huge name. And one of the things that I find interesting is that regionally it seems to be, you got the skunk ape in Florida. You've got the Fouke Monster around Boggy Creek. And then, you got Bigfoot in Seattle and Yeti. Is there a difference that sets the Fouke Monster apart from maybe its other counterparts that are found and scattered around the world?
Yeah, to me, it has a difference, and that's one reason I always liked. I like the Legend of Boggy Creek. I mean, I'm from Texas. You know, I've hunted in Texas and Arkansas. And, you know, I'm just partial to this environment, and I think the Fouke Monster kind of reflects some of the swampy Arkansas lands where he's from. You know, he's a little leaner, meaner, hairier than what you think a Bigfoot is. Almost a little scarier. In the case of the Fouke Monster, several of the sightings, and one of the most famous, the Ford sighting, which was the last seen in the Legend of Boggy Creek, where the creature is said to have attacked people. So it seems to be a little more dangerous, you know, perhaps moody or whatever, which kind of gives it a little more personality, I think, you know, than other stuff. Now, it's hard to say if those creatures, if they exist, are, you know, part of a universal species, or if there's something separate. You know, the skunk ape kind of tends to be smaller, maybe more orangutan-like, so I think it's different than that, and it's definitely different than the larger, more docile Bigfoot reports that you might get from California. So, you know, it may be just the way people from this area look at it, but I definitely think it's got a difference from what you see in the rest of the world.
Now, you mentioned that it's scarier. I mean, how much of that being scarier comes from having a major motion picture based around it, you know, a horror film? I mean, Boggy Creek was a pretty big hit back in the 70s. And how much is that based around that more so than what you're hearing from reports? Or are the reports not really reflecting, or was the movie not truly reflecting in a truly aggressive nature in this creature?
Well, I think the movie, and that's one place where the movie kind of took a creative license. It definitely made it seem more dangerous than the reports were saying it was. Although the first incident, the Ford incident, that's really what got it in the papers and started making it famous. You know, in that case, I mean, basically you had an encounter where Bobby Ford was outside and they were looking around the house and they had seen this tall, hairy creature on the edge of the woods. They shot at it, and in making his way back to the house, he says he was attacked by one of these, and he ended up, you know, crashing through the door, and he ended up in the hospital in Texarkana suffering from shock. And, you know, I've talked to the reporters that were there when the guy was in the hospital, and they said this guy was definitely scared to death. I mean, as far as, you know, he was concerned, he was attacked by the creature. So that kind of set off that reputation for the Fouke Monster as being more dangerous. And there was some other accounts where, you know, it was said to have been aggressive toward people, but really the majority of them are glimpses of it. Hunters seeing it move through the woods. A guy in a boat that was fishing saw it walk by. So, of course, you know, it's not always attacking people, but, yeah, it definitely gets that reputation.
And it seems to me it's not unearned to have a reputation of aggressiveness. Like you said, it seems to be a little leaner, a little quicker, a little more, you know, scarier than its counterparts. And it also, I mean, the Boggy Creek is kind of a swampy area, and I don't know if maybe environment is kind of dictating its behavior to some degree. I mean, does that resonate?
Yeah, well, I would think so, man. If I had to spend the summer out there in the swamp, I'd be really pissed off, man. I mean, it is, we were just up there canoeing down the Sulphur River, and it maybe got up to 80, but, I mean, we were attacked by these buffalo gnats. We were just all ate up. And and that was only at 80 degrees. It gets to be, especially like last summer, it was upwards of, 107, 108. So I definitely think that if you were a tall, hairy creature having to live in the swamp in summer temperatures, man, I saw some humans on it. I'll probably attack them too.
That does make a lot of sense. I would be a little frustrated as well. I mean,
Yeah.
And I imagine, what other kind of species that are known are living in there, kind of creating a hostile environment?
In these swamp areas, and I guess you mean like alligators, and of course they're in the water, so they're doing it the smart way. There's cougars up there. I've even got reports of black panthers, which are also supposed to not to exist, but I've got definitely credible people, including a sheriff, that say they saw a panther. There's some black bears, there's been a few in these areas, but, not to speak of. I actually found a story where there was an actual African lion roaming around up there in this little area called Jonesville, which has a long history of the creature, which is just about 5 miles from Fouke. But people had seen an African lion roaming around out there. And in one case, a girl saw it, and it was just covered in blood. So it was definitely killing stuff up there. So everybody has all these theories. Oh, it was a circus train wreck that, the creature ran from long ago. Which I can never prove that there was a circus train wreck, but I sure did discover there was a lion up there, which was, probably once a pet from, somebody let loose.
Well, and that's probably the case. I know recently here where I'm at in Ohio, in Lancaster, I think it made the national news, somebody let a bunch of lions go, and they had to kill them all before they kind of slipped away into the environment. And if all it would take is it to slip away and get lost. So, finding a lion, as crazy as that sounds, in a place where, it's obviously not on the safari, I can see how that could happen.
Yeah, it kind of, not that a lion could be mistaken for a, bipedal, tall, hairy creature, but maybe a black panther, it could possibly account for some of these. And again, it kind of backs up that you're not necessarily sure what people have seen, but I think in a lot of cases they definitely saw something. Even if that turned out to be a black panther, well, that's a kind of a cryptid animal unto itself. So, there's strange things up there, and there's strange things in the woods, whether they're unknown species or known. So it can frighten people.
Well, that too, and the environment to have a creature like that, everyone thinks, I know a lot of people think that Harry and the Henderson is the Bigfoot, but if you're in an environment where you're not the apex predator, which is, I would say, would probably be alligators would be your top of the heap there, and then you've got bears and big cats and, probably snakes that are killers as well. It would kind of make sense to where this creature would become more aggressive and more likely to protect itself so it can survive. It just seems like the environment would create a leaner, meaner creature than maybe in other places. A swamp is a dangerous place.
Yeah, definitely. I think in the heat, Pacific Northwest Bigfoot, you're living in a colder environment, you need to bulk up, and naturally in animals you got, grizzlies, and as you get north, grizzlies are bigger, and, that's, an adaptation to the environment. So I think if you're down in this area where it gets much hotter, it would only be natural that the creature might be a little, leaner than they would be up there, because they certainly wouldn't need the extra fat or bulk, to keep warm. It does get cold here, temperatures are much shorter, and you don't deal with snow and all that. So they would have to definitely be adaptable.
Yeah, and I think that's, I don't know, it explains a lot to me when you're looking at these creatures. And one of the things that, you hear all the time is that if the creature's this big, it would be discovered, and it doesn't have, the proper feeding population. I mean, how large is the area that this creature is being reported in? And, I mean, does it seem logical to you it could hide, one or probably more than one of these creatures in it?
Right. Well, I think, people are always under the impression that the areas down here, even in Texas, that are wide open and there's hardly any forests. Arkansas, they probably don't really know or think, well, there's woods, there's moonshiners hiding out there, but, people don't really realize how much forestry there is. But in my book, I kind of cover that. I address that same question you're asking. Okay, say these are real. Could an animal like that even exist down here? Is there enough food? Is there enough places to hide? And in my research, I found that there was right in the four-state area, which is Fouke is kind of at this southwest corner of Arkansas, so it's right there at Oklahoma, Arkansas, Texas, and Louisiana. And in that area, there's about 20,000 square miles of forestry that are available with waterways, a ton of waterways up there. You got the Red River running down towards the Mississippi, and off that you got the Sulphur River, the Mercer Bayou, and of course the little Boggy Creek that runs up by Fouke. So it now runs down south towards Caddo Lake in Texas, which as well has a history of these type of creatures. And I also talk about the old movie Creature from Black Lake from 1975, which was filmed in Oil City, Louisiana. And all these places are not very far from Fouke. That's in Louisiana, but, they're in the same vicinity. So what I found that area certainly has a lot of forestry and available food and a lot of just that bottomland swampy area where nobody lives. There's like 18,000 acres in the Sulphur River Wildlife Management, which is just west of Fouke. I mean, there's nothing out there. There's no people, homes. You can't even camp out there. You can only get there by boat because it's just so boggy. I mean, we camped off the Sulphur River, and it hasn't really been raining that much down here. And everywhere we got out, there's like 6 inches of water. We couldn't find a place to put the tent. And these kind of environments just are not very hospitable to developments or anything like that, so they've remained unchanged for a long time. If there was a small population of these things that wanted to hide up in there, I think it's possible.
Well, that's one of the things that when the skeptics come in and they do say that these are large creatures and they kind of take for granted that not everybody is living in urban areas, and urban sprawl has not reached as far as they presume, because I believe the last time I checked, I think almost. I'm trying to think. It's like 40% of the United States is covered in forest. And that's a lot of forest. I mean, that's a lot of hiding places for creatures of this size. And certainly, since we don't know a lot about it, we can't dictate what their diet necessarily would be. I mean, if they're carnivorous, or if they're omnivores, or if they they only eat vegetables, we don't know. We don't know that. So it's kind of a lot of supposition happens when a statement like that, they're too large to sustain themselves. A lot of things have to happen for that to be true.
Yeah, and I can see both sides. I mean, you can see like, okay, it's a long shot, but on the other hand, there is a possibility. Nobody can really definitively say one way or the other. You've got, people from all walks of life and all different training and background, and they all have different opinions, and that's great. I think it just boils down to we don't really know, and if you want to go by the sightings and the history, it's just possible that they do exist. And I think in my research and what I do in the book is, I kind of take the approach of, I'm not trying to prove it one way or the other, because I just don't have I don't have a body, I don't have hard proof, but nonetheless, it's very intriguing, the whole story and the history of Fouke, just what happened with how the sighting of this creature affected this little town. It's kind of an interesting story unto itself. So whether the creature was real or wasn't real, this stuff still happened, and people believed that they saw it. And, that's in many people's minds, it existed. So in a way, it does exist, even if we can't prove it, or even if it's not even, we don't ever turn up with a body. So I tried to look at the story as an interesting story and to lay out the whole history of it. And that way people could read the book, and now they have all the information on the Fouke Monster, not just coming from the Legend of Boggy Creek movie or what little bit there is on the internet. Now everybody can read it for themselves and say, they can make their own opinion,
I mean, I think that's a great approach to it. I mean, because like you said, you don't have a body, you don't have tons of evidence, but at the same time, one of the things that I find particularly for myself, that keeps pulling me back to the whole Bigfoot, Sasquatch, whatever question is that it seems to me that if it's real, time will kind of bear it out. Something will eventually happen and eventually break to kind of show us what exactly we've been seeing and hearing about for years.
Oh yeah. I mean, if it exists, it's definitely time is on our side, because there will be a mistake, there will be a body, when they'll finally get hit by a car or whatever, and then everybody who's laughed will say, "Oh, wow, darn, you were right." But who knows? But yeah, I agree. I think if it's real, one of these days there'll be some proof or a body or whatever.
I think that's an inevitability if it is real. But I guess, like you said, we can't say that definitively, and I guess the opposite could also be true, and we could still be just chasing shadows, for the next 200 years.
Yeah, yeah. But what I try to do with it all is I like mysteries. I like spooky stories. I like swamp monsters. And I try to have fun with it all the way, because, there's always that chance that we're chasing shadows, and, you don't want to look back in 20 years and go, "Oh, dude, what was I doing? I spent all this money and time." That's not going to happen for me, because I'm going to say, "Man, what a great experience. I heard some really great, interesting stories, and I had a good time doing it, and I did my best to gather information and share it with others." So I think it's important to try to be vigilant and do good research, but at the same time have a good time with what you're doing,
We're talking with Lyle Blackburn. He is the author of the book The Beast of Boggy Creek, the true story of the Fouke Monster. We're going to take our first break. We'll be back in approximately 3 minutes. We're going to go pay some bills, and we'll be right back.
You are listening to Shark Radio Network.
And we're back with Lyle Blackburn. The book is The Beast of Boggy Creek, the true story of the Fouke Monster. You want to pick up a copy of that? Easy enough. Go to grandarkconspiracy.com. Click on the link there right under the book cover, and you'll be able to get your copy at Amazon. Lyle, one of the things that, typically I would start off an interview asking this question, but I'm always intrigued when somebody becomes part of the paranormal community, and for whatever reason, cryptozoology is affiliated with that. What kind of drew you into looking into cryptozoology?
I'm probably like a lot of guys that was around to watch some TV in the 1970s. When I was really young, I caught the Patterson Gimlin film on probably like In Search Of or one of those shows on TV. And later on, my parents took me to the drive-in to see The Legend of Boggy Creek. And, I was pretty young at the time, but it had an impact on me, and my family enjoyed it. Like I said, my dad was a hunter, so he appreciated that sort of backwoods thing. And so that kind of fueled my fire for the Bigfoot side of cryptozoology, but I also love a lot of the strange but true books and things like that. So I always loved the Loch Ness Monster and all the other ones. And more recently, chupacabra is a good one. And there's been a lot of activity of reports in Texas of so-called chupacabras, so I'm kind of in the hub of that. So I've always had an interest in it, but I've spent most of my life as a musician, and that's been pretty busy with that, touring and other things, and I never had a time to really get into much personal research, and so only lately I've just decided to do some things that I've always wanted to do. One of those was to write a book, and what was my favorite subject? The legend of Boggy Creek, and that's kind of how that started. So I've always had sort of the seed growing there, and recently I've really immersed myself and taken a lot more time to do personal research.
So, I mean, it's just one of those things to me, like, it's always interesting to kind of hear where people come into the field and start to do the research. So, I mean, it just started as a curiosity for you that kind of took you down this path. Now, that you have started down this path, has it changed your viewpoint on the subject matter at all, or has it just kind of increased your curiosity?
Well, I think, I was actually, I catch Bigfoot shows as they come on TV over the years or whatever, but it wasn't until I actually started going to some group meetings or conferences that they put on around here and various groups do, that I realized how many people are seriously involved in this, and now with the whole podcast thing, I mean, I started listening to podcasts on the paranormal subjects, and which are great because, you can really reach a lot of people. And I was just kind of amazed at how many people were seriously doing research. And so after having gotten into it myself, I think it's really strengthened my interest in it, because I've come across so many first-hand reports. It's not like seeing them on TV or even hearing them on the radio. I talk to these people directly, and as much as I try to be fair and skeptical, I can't explain away these sightings, and that just really keeps me fired up to keep the research going.
Now, in all the time that you have been researching, have you come across anything personally? Do you have any personal stories yourself about whether it's the Fouke Monster or anything in the paranormal vein?
Well, unfortunately, I haven't had any Bigfoot sightings, Fouke Monster or otherwise. Ironically, I have seen a ghost, or I believe I have, and that happened when I was younger, in high school. And so, when people talk about ghosts, I'll chime in and say, I definitely saw a ghost, and, to the best of my knowledge, that's what it was. So, that would be my only, I suppose, verifiable paranormal experience.
Do you care to share that story, or is it too personal?
Oh, sure. Basically, like I said, I was a musician, so I was in a band in high school, and one of the guys in my band, his house, he told us, oh yeah, we have a ghost, it's this kind of young boy, we think, and parents have seen it, and I've seen it, and some of our other friends have seen it. But, it's the type of thing you're like, yeah, okay, you're a ghost, whatever. I loved ghosts, I was all about the subject, but, we lived in pretty much a suburban neighborhood, and I just wasn't like it was an old spooky house or anything. So, anyway, I was sitting on the fireplace one day, kind of watching TV, and it was kind of right across from the entryway where the front door comes in and leads from the den into the hallway. and I was sitting there watching TV, and right out of the corner of my eye, I see exactly almost what you think a ghost would look like. It was the kind of a whitish shape of a person walk by from the den across the opening and then go down the hallway. And, it just caught my attention. It happened very fast, and I looked at my friend. I said, "Dude, I just saw the ghost." And he goes, "Oh yeah, he goes across there all the time. I've seen him several times. It's just like it was no big deal, But I was like, wow, that was amazing." And while I wasn't looking at it fully with full concentration, I definitely saw it, and it kind of, to me, it was even better that it just caught my eye. It wasn't like I was out looking for ghosts or anything. There it was, and I saw it. So that was that. It wasn't a spooky experience, but it was definitely awesome.
Yeah, it kind of. I've seen a few things myself personally, and at times you've got to realize that sometimes you experience things, and you're not you just can't be a skeptic about it afterwards. That's just the nature of things. An experience will change the ability for you to have skepticism towards something's existence.
Yeah, and I think that, in a way it helps with my Bigfoot research. While I haven't seen a hairy ape running through the woods, on the other hand, when somebody says, "Man, I really believe I saw this creature," they could just, that could be on the other hand, me telling somebody I saw a ghost, because I know I did. I don't know what it was, or I can't measure it. I can't quantify it or have any proof, but I know I saw it. So it kind of gives me some, perspective or empathy or whatever you want to say when somebody's telling me that they saw something strange. I'm not so quick to say, well, this or that, because I know strange things. I've seen them.
Right, and I think that is one of those things I would imagine as a researcher allows you to be a little more open, and also helps you kind of communicate that you're not going to stigmatize somebody for sharing with you.
Oh, certainly. I definitely start off in a, innocent until proven guilty. If I'm gonna take your word for it, and I'm gonna look into it, and unless I see otherwise, then I'm not gonna write you off. So, I think you just got to have an open mind, and you also got to be skeptical and kind of look at it from all the angles to try to get the best judgment you can make. So it's just a good practice.
I would agree with that. It just seems like that would be the best practice, is to kind of let the story come out before you make judgments, and then try and look at everything from all sides. Now,
yeah, that really helped me in the whole Fouke research, because the town is somewhat sensitive about this, because they've had filmmakers up there, they've had news stations over the years. There's been tons of people down there, investigating this, and a lot of the people that came forward, were laughed at and made fun of, and then it's in a movie, and people were made fun of because they were in a movie, and they haven't just closed their mouth about the whole thing. And it took me a little bit to prove to them that I was not there to make fun of them, and in fact, I was interested in their stories, and I wanted to tell the truth of it. I was just doing it as a third party, a journalist. I wasn't trying to make them out to be backwoods hicks or any of that. And so after a time of me keeping on going up there and getting to know people, they started coming forward and telling me stories that no one's ever read. And in some ways, they kind of correlated and backed up other stories I had been getting from others. So it was interesting to, once I earned their trust, to see what I was getting. And I think if I would have rolled in there like, hey, I'm writing a book, and acted like a dumbass, I would have never have gotten these stories,
and I think That's probably true. I mean, didn't realize that it had such a negative impact on that community. It's interesting that you were able to get people to open up about it then. I mean, if it had been such a negative thing for that community.
Yeah. You know, some people didn't see it as negative, some people did. A lot of the old timers, you know, had gone through look, I've told this story and I'm not telling it again. And in some cases, some of the people whose tales were in the Legend of Boggy Creek, I never could get them to talk to me because they literally said that so many people have, you know, poked fun at them over the years, they just weren't going to say anything more. So there were a few cases where I was, you know, kind of ruined by what people had done prior to me. So,
well, that's kind of unfortunate. I mean, because a lot of the people from the movie, and it's been a while since I've seen it, so forgive me. I know that, you know, I'm sure they had some interesting stories. I mean, did you just kind of include those in passing then, because you didn't get word of mouth? Kind of just said this was in the movie and.
Well, you know, and I do dissect every scene. I kind of have an appendix where I say, here's the scene in the movie, and here's what actually happened. And I go scene by scene. You know, and as well, in the body of the book, I cover those sightings as sightings in the chronological order in which they happened. Some of them, like in the case where I'm saying I couldn't talk to these people, I could find out from the other locals, was that accurate? Did that happen the way, you know, it happened in the movie, or was it different? And I could recount the story. But I tried to actually, when possible, I tried to actually go back and interview the very person that had the sighting rather than just, you know, take the word of somebody else. A lot of them are dead. So, you know, I just had to take either the newspaper report or something from their son or daughter or whatever. But you know, I do cover them also. And that was one thing I tried to do with the book, is I wanted to get all the sightings I could possibly get covered in my book, because they were scattered all over the place in newspapers, some of them in Smokey Crabtree's book, some of them in the movie. So if I wanted to write the definitive guide to the Fouke Monster, I definitely wanted to have everything in there and as detailed, thorough as I could possibly get it.
Well, I know with like Smokey Crabtree, I know he tried to write his own book about the Fouke Monster. And is he still with us, or is he passed?
No, he's still with us.
Did you have the opportunity? Oh, I'm sorry.
He's written 3 memoirs, and in relation to his life, he covers, you know, from his perspective, things that happened in filming the movie, and naturally he's lived there and he was in the movie, so he covers a lot, but he does it in a way from his own memoirs, personal perspective, whereas I'm coming in and just doing everything in a history, you know, a third-person approach. So he has covered a lot of things, and I did use his source materials as reference, and I know Smokey as well, so he helped me out on the book. So
okay. Well, you kind of mentioned though you had some of these accounts from descendants of the original stories, and I'm wondering, like, is it starting to take on some kind of like a folkloric quality to it, to where maybe these embellishments are coming out, and it starts to become harder to kind of pin down when an actual event happened?
Well, we're going way back. People are like, I can't say exactly what year, but I definitely remember this guy said this. So the older ones mostly have a lot less detail to them. As you get further in, further down the line, luckily Smokey, had written some of these things down in the 70s, so at least I had some good dates to go of those, and the movie certainly helped document some of those to keep them in memory. Once I get to the 80s, now the people are young enough that had encounters that from there on I pretty much interviewed the actual people, and those are much more recent. So I didn't find that there was that much embellishment. In fact, two of the sightings in the 90s, there was, in one case it was 6 people, in one case it was 5 people that saw the thing at one time. And in the case where 6 people had seen it, I talked to 2 of the witnesses. So I didn't just talk to one, I talked to both. And their stories pretty much matched,
That kind of has to help, validate a story, is when you have multiple witnesses kind of corroborating each other's story independently. It seems to lend some real credence to the existence or the possible existence of some creature out there that maybe is not cataloged correctly or maybe isn't cataloged at all. The Fouke Monster seems to get more credibility when you get stories like that.
Oh yeah, those 2 in the 90s are just flat out amazing. I mean, just people can read in the book, but one of them Smokey had covered a little bit, and then one of them was passed on to me by another person until I could finally get a hold of the 2 witnesses in this case. So this will be the first time anybody's ever read some of these. But yeah, just totally amazing. I mean, unless there was just some kind of flat-out mass hysteria, there is no way that 6 people could have seen the same thing and it not be real,
With the mass hysteria thing, I mean, that's always interesting when someone brings that up, but I'm not exactly how that would happen that 6 people would see a physical thing and I don't understand why that is often used as an explanation. To me, it seems as ludicrous as saying, even more ludicrous than saying there was a 7-foot-tall hairy creature standing there, or 6 people saw the same thing and they all have different descriptions from their own perspective.
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole paranormal phenomenon happening unto itself. If 6 people see something that's not real and describe it the same, so that's always kind of the go-to. It was either a mass hysteria, a hoax, or it's real. And so it wasn't mass hysteria, And if it was a hoax, and that's what I always discovered, you kind of got to look at these, any Bigfoot thing, was it possibly a hoax? Because obviously a person can get a suit and dress up, but of course in Fouke, especially in the old days, I mean, everybody's got a shotgun in the back of their truck. People are armed. You'd have to be absolutely crazy to stand out on the side of the highway, walk between cars at night at 11 p.m. and unless you got a death wish,
You was suicide by Bigfoot suit, yeah.
Yeah, and ironically, nobody's run over anybody, even in a suit. So, it's that's always something you got to look at as far as they saw something definitely, but did they see a hairy ape creature or did they see a person? And I couldn't find really hardly in any of these where it even could have possibly been a person. It was just too outlandish of a place for a person to be,
Now, I guess you mentioned at the very top of the show, and I don't know why I'm coming back to it now, I guess it just kind of popped into my head. You mentioned that, there's reports as far back as 1905. That's kind of mind-boggling to me. I mean, I know that the Boggy Creek and the Fouke Monster aren't exactly, I'm not an expert on either of them. I was not aware that it had a history going back 107 years.
Right, and I think, that's one thing about my book is because all of these, way I was getting these were by word of mouth. And the way I would have never have got these unless the people kind of had their trust in me, and I had some assistance from some of the guys in the town that were interested in history. Because this is the first time that some of these stories have ever been out there, because they were just really word of mouth to me. I mean, I'm sure a lot of the locals know of these and have known, but they don't run to the paper. They're not posting it on the internet, and they're not writing books. So, I was quite amazed that there was some sightings back that far. There's one I have from 1932. There was one from the 20s, which was it wasn't as near Fouke, but it was right in along the Sulphur River. So I found that. I was like, wow, this is the same kind of creature, and it's right down the Sulphur River. And I don't think many people put two and two together. To me, it could definitely be the same creature, in the same area.
Well,
but it just didn't, happen in Fouke.
Well, absolutely. You kind of mentioned and alluded to that earlier, that, there's all these different sightings and all these nearby places, and it's all kind of connected to the same waterways. And, does it seem to be, from you looking into this so extensively, does it seem to be that this creature has a range to it? Like, it migrates, maybe not like over great distances, but it has a territory that, it keeps popping up in, maybe larger than, Fouke or just the Boggy Creek?
I think it would have to have a range. If it's a large creature, in order to keep a food supply and to move where the water is and whatever it needs to do to survive and to breed, it's just got to have a larger range. People kind of have this, it's the Fouke Monster, it lives on the edge of town and it stays there, and then it comes out every once in a while. That's not what a real animal would do. But, you've got mountain lions, I think, and other, predators and things. Their range, I don't know, I'm talking on top of my head, like 20 square miles or 50 square miles. They got huge ranges in which they operate. And, so I think naturally that if there was such a creature as the Fouke Monster, it would have the same. And naturally it could travel the waterways to the south, to the southwest. And that's where I found the other sightings. And I kind of brought those into the picture just to say, hey, these might all be connected, and they're they sound very similar,
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think maybe people get so focused on one geographical location because, well, it's the legend of Boggy Creek, or it's the Fouke Monster, because, that's where its fame rose. But it kind of, I would think, creates a myopic view of the creature and maybe makes it seem even more unlikely, because if you're talking about Boggy Creek, I would imagine that's much smaller than, say, the Sulphur River bottoms. You would seem like you could take 20 guys in and find the Fouke Monster in one afternoon, if that were in fact true.
Right, yeah. I think, it's when you have a creature that's sort of attached to a town like that, until you really go out and scout the area, you just don't really have a good picture of the landscape and really what's going on there. But, it may have emerged and walked around the creeks in Fouke, but it definitely lives and dwells somewhere else, probably in the Sulphur River Wildlife Management Area or some nearby remote area. So,
We're talking with Lyle Blackburn. We're going to take our final break of the evening here. We're going to pay some more bills, and we'll be right back. And, it looks like 3 minutes and 15 seconds. Chocolate. The word itself conjures up images, smells, associations to our memories, and of course, taste. When most people hear the word, they smile. When they get a piece of good chocolate, they melt. Each one of these chocolates has been created by chocolatier Lloyd Auerbach and can be shipped to you for your enjoyment. Available in many different assortments, you can go to hauntedbychocolate.com to order yours today. So are you haunted by chocolate?
Shark Radio Network.
Elite Auto Works, auto customizing and restoration. We are located on 29 East 3rd Street in downtown Mansfield, Ohio. With a combined experience of 26 years, our reputation stands strong for quality, accuracy, proficiency, and honesty. Experience with everything from collision to customizing and specializing in full frame off restorations. Our shop is one of the very few left out there that can and will still do leading. Our long history of custom restoration and creation speaks for itself. Elite Auto Works, 419-565-4503, www.eliteautoworks.org. And we're back with Lyle Blackburn. We're talking about his book, The Beast of Boggy Creek. And the true story of the Fouke Monsters. I apologize, having slight technical difficulties. The true story of the Fouke Monsters. There we go. We're back on track. Didn't take too long. I apologize. So, I'm sorry, Lyle. So now you've written this book about the Beast of Boggy Creek, and you said that you have so many stories now starting to even come in that you're considering writing a second book. Do you think that you're going to kind of expand past the Boggy Creek and start to look into other cryptozoological creatures or even different paranormal avenues?
Well, I've got several book ideas that I was wanting to do next, and I'm kind of tossing those around. I'm probably not going to cover lake monsters or things like that. There's people that are much better experts at that than me, and we don't have a lot of lake monsters to speak of, or notable ones here in Texas. So I'm kind of, more in the realm of the southern Bigfoot or maybe chupacabra. I'm interested in that subject as well, but I'm going to expand, but I'm really, I found, in researching the Fouke Monster, I've kind of found some other kind of swamp monster stories that intrigue me, so I thought I may go along and expand the swamp monster theme for another book, or, I probably won't write a part 2 to this. That's the next book. I need to let it all kind of come in, Once the book's out there, I'm starting to get some feedback and I'm sure a lot of other information, so I wouldn't mind writing another one because I just love the subject, but, that's just if there's enough interesting stuff, I guess, so. So I'm not exactly sure what to do next, but I'm going to figure that out here pretty soon because I need to start another book, I suppose.
Well, I mean, you do and you don't. I mean, it's just if the book's there, and I just was wondering if there was other avenues of the paranormal that you were going to explore, or different. Obviously, you have interest in the chupacabra, and I know there was a lot of sightings coming out down there in that area there for a while. I don't know if it's slowed down any at all. I haven't seen so many, but then again, you know how news cycles are. They move on from things rather quickly, and they forget about them, and then they resurrect them again. I mean, is it still something that's prevalent in your area?
Well, I haven't seen a lot of new ones lately. There for a while, yeah, there was a lot of reports of, I call them the Texas chupacabra. I mean, these are not the same creature that is traditionally known in Puerto Rico, So it's a phenomenon unto itself, but I haven't had a lot of time to look into it, so I'm probably partial to the swamp monster thing. And I did, being my connection to ghosts, I did think it might be kind of cool to research, other strange phenomenon that has happened in a swampy environment, because, there's things other than hairy monsters, so I thought, that might be kind of something cool to research. And we have a lot of that kind of, I'm close to Louisiana, I'm close to Arkansas, so, and East Texas is full of really cool, ghost story, kind of areas, so there's a lot out there I can research, so, just trying to, figure out where to go, where to go.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, it does seem like it is kind of, at least from what I can understand and what I know, you seem to be in a very folklorically rich area of the country, and it would make a great deal of sense to kind of, especially with the swamp, is kind of untapped. I mean, I'm sure there's some great stories. I mean, trying to remember, even Charlie Daniels wrote a song about a swamp creature, I believe, or a haunting or something along that line. I can't remember the name of the song right now.
Legend of Woolly Swamp.
That's exactly it, the Legend of Woolly Swamp. So, I mean, it's not like it's not part of the fabric of the culture down there, having swamp monsters and, ghost stories. And, I don't see it exposed a lot,
Yeah, I don't know why. and I like those. And really, I mean, no matter what I do, really with the Fouke Monster book, I literally wrote that book just because I wanted to know. I'm so, I was so enthralled with the legend of Boggy Creek and seen it so many times, and I really wanted to know more about, the history of this thing. And so, really, I mean, in a way, I just wrote the book because I wanted to know. And, I think with the future projects, it'll be the same kind of thing. Whatever appeals to me most, and I think that always makes a good product, because, I have some other offers from other publishers to kind of pump out some kind of a generic cryptozoology book, and I just passed. I'm like, I don't even know if I could do that. Well, I mean, I could do it, but I don't have my heart into it, so I passed, So I'm definitely looking for what interests me. I think if it interests me and I write a good book, then obviously that translates into something entertaining for others, as I think I've done with the Boggy Creek book.
Well, I think when you're passionate about a project, it always shows through, and I think anybody who's got a real sense of what's coming out will pick up on that, and it probably will endear that product more to them. That passion is necessary to create because, if you're a creative person, you actually kind of need that to put out anything of worth. And I mean, I know you're a musician and you're also writing these books. So, I mean, I know that you're clearly in the creative phase, and if you don't have that passion, well, then you're not going to get a product that you're yourself proud of, and probably one that won't connect with the public at large.
Right, yeah, and it goes for music as well, It seems like if I sat down to write an album, let me think of something, never going to be as good as when inspiration strikes you at midnight and you just start cranking out some riff and write some lyrics. Those are always the best songs, and so I kind of keep the same vibe for the book writing as well, because in essence, to me it takes a lot more work than I'll probably make any money at doing this. So it's definitely something that you want to be proud of and do for your own self-satisfaction.
I really couldn't agree with that more. Did you find that kind of writing this book was any more difficult or any really different than for you as what you do with your music? Was it harder to do, or did it come easier for you?
I think it's much harder to write a book because, or at least for me, because not that I'm a competent writer. I've always been good at it. And I write for Reward magazine, and so I'm familiar with writing. But with music, it's so much more quick to get self gratification, because you can actually, I could finish a song. I could write a song in a couple of hours. In best circumstances, and if I had a gig a few weeks from now, I could play that in front of a bunch of people. Done. There it is. There's a song. Hey, what do y'all think? But with a book, it takes a lot more patience and sitting at the computer and then going out and doing the research. And I got the deal last July, and it's March, and it's just coming out, which is kind of fast in book world, but it definitely takes a lot more patience and a lot more waiting for that gratification than it does with music, I think.
That makes a great deal of sense. I mean, and also I think that instant gratification is kind of nice to have to a creative process, but when you take your time with something, I think, like your book here, you have to wait for that validation. so I imagine that's a lot more. That's where the passion comes in. Obviously, you had to be very passionate about this project, or you would have never brought it to fruition.
Yeah, and I've always wanted to write a book, and I've done some comic books and other small things, where I've written, but I never could find the drive to do it, because I always pictured myself, okay, I'm going to write a book, I'm going to have to sit at this computer and dream up a bunch of stuff or whatever. That just seems so long and stuff. It wasn't until I started getting out in the field and doing some research and hearing stories and writing this book, I was, visiting people and going out in a canoe. There was alligators swimming by. I'm like, okay, now this is book writing, This is killer, and, I could come back, I could write some stuff up, and then I could go back again. So I think I've discovered that nonfiction books are cool, and definitely books where you're doing research and people are telling you stories of monsters, or when they saw quote-unquote monsters, I'm like, yeah, this is killer. So once I discovered that, then I was on the roll to getting a book, and so I finally did it,
So now that you've written this, I would say you probably know more about Boggy Creek or the Fouke Monster than I would just about anybody. Have you gone back and revisited the movie that kind of inspired you when you first watched it?
I've watched it again since I've written the book, and I think it still strikes me as intriguing, and being the world's leading authority on the Fouke Monster now, if I may say so. I still find it, fun to watch, and even better because now I'm like, wow, I know everything behind that, and I know those people. Oh yeah, I've talked to that guy's son, and I know that person. It's just really cool, I think. So as my friend Jerry says, I'm all ate up with Boggy Creek, so I'm apparently obsessed with it.
Well, but obviously it's taken you somewhere, so that's all right. It's a constructive obsession. It's not one that's going to derail your life or any form. It's one of those things. You could be obsessed with a lot of things, and some of them are really bad for you. So unless you run in with the Boggy Creek Monster and you don't have a gun or a knife on you, and he wants you for dinner, I don't think it's going to be bad for you.
That's right. And hey, if I get eaten by them and my book sales go out the roof, it's all good.
Well, let's hope you don't get eaten by the Fouke Monster, or get lost in Boggy Creek.
More likely to get my arm bit off by one of those gators up in the Sulphur River than that. So, I'm always careful when I paddle.
I would imagine so. See, I've never had to face down a gator here in Ohio. I think the worst thing I've ever faced down here is probably a spider or something along that line. So,
yeah, well, just as deadly in some cases. So, always something out there to get you. But those are the fun risks you take, and you feel accomplished when you come back to the big city, and you can tell your buddy that you saw some deadly creature and you survived.
Now, what would you do if you actually ran into the Fouke Monster? I mean, would that kind of really turn your whole world on its ear?
Yeah, I'd probably just run right up and hug it, but that probably wouldn't be the right thing to do. But now, I think it's probably everybody. You have it in your mind, and if I see one of these, here's what I'm going to do. But it's really hard to say until you're in that situation. I would like to say that I would have my camera, I could get a good picture. I don't think I would run away or anything, but I don't know. It's hard to say what it would be like in person. But I think I pretty much would attempt to follow it, or at least get a picture or get a long, good look at it, and get as much description as I possibly could, you know. That's what I hope I would do.
Because I'm always curious when someone's a seeker, and you obviously are, you know, to some degree that with the Fouke Monster, having not seen it before, how that reaction would actually play out. Like, now you no longer have to seek to see if it's true. You no longer have to seek to kind of have that experience. Now that you've had it, how do you react to it? It's always always interesting to me from almost like a sociological background, you know, how that reaction would play out and how that would change your approach to the subject.
Yeah, that's certainly an interesting concept. I mean, because, you know, even in my mind, you know, I have a certain preconceived notion or my own imagination that's applied to what exactly that creature looks like, what it is, how it acts, you know, because, you know, obviously I've been thinking about it for the last couple of years. So, yeah, I've got this big build-up in my mind, and then, you know, would seeing it make it better, or would I be disappointed, or would I be scared? You know, it's just mind-boggling to try to imagine, you know, what, you know, seeing this thing in person would be like. You know, it's one thing, it's on my cover, but, wow, yeah. But I'd love to see it, that's for sure.
Well, it's just it. I mean, and sometimes, like, you know, sometimes the chase is better than the catch. You know, and I just wondered if, you know, any things that I've had questions about in my life, do, you know, you seek so long for something, is it become more about the chase than the catch? And it's one of those things, do you just stop looking for it? It's questions answered and you're done. Do you move on? Or do you keep trying to bring that to everybody else? I mean, it's
right. Yeah. Like some girls I've gone after, you know, and you're like, all right, yeah, they're not all that. No, I don't know. I might ask, you know, I might marry the Fouke Monster, I don't know. If she's hot, you know.
Yeah, well, yeah, obviously.
I like brunettes. I'm you know, I got to start.
Obviously, it's got long hair, so if you like that.
Yeah, I like long hair brunettes. Hey, we got a love connection.
That's
But yeah, the chase, you know, it's you know, thinking about it, you know, imagining things. It's a lot of that goes a long way in making it interesting. It's like a movie, you know, that never really reveals the monster. Is always scarier than when they stick, you know, the rubber head in your face, or the CGI head, so even worse.
I concur. I absolutely agree with that. The CGI. I mean, we could talk about practical effects versus, you know, computer effects if you want.
Yeah, I'm all about the practical. I'll go with, I mean, Charles Pierce, you know, he does a pretty darn good job himself back then, so keeping it spooky.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, though, I mean, keeping it obscured kind of makes it, keeping it in the shadows definitely makes it more intriguing. I mean, especially, like you said, the movies, like I always think of In the Mouth of Madness, what that would have been like if they'd showed those monsters at the end of it.
Yeah, exactly.
And maybe finding your own monster would be somewhat disappointing. You know.
Yeah, I guess maybe old Roger Patterson might could answer that.
Well, yeah.
Possibly.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, do you think, I will ask that, do you think that the Patterson-Gimlin film is true or a hoax?
Well, you know, I've done some research into that, and I do know Mr. Gimlin. I've talked to him several times, and I'm torn on it. You know, there's a lot of. I'm going to say I think it's real. You know, I see a lot of points that people have against it, but I'm just going to err on the side that I know Bob Gimlin, and he's just not seemed like the kind of guy that would purport something like this all these years, you know.
I am I am in agreement with that. I think it's the one legitimate piece of evidence that is out there supporting the existence of Bigfoot. I'm on the record saying that right now, so, crucify me if you want. That's fine. Lyle, I want to give you the opportunity to let people know where they can get the book, what you've got coming up, and, all your endeavors here. I mean, let people know where they can get a hold of everything you've got going on.
Okay. My personal website is monstrobizarro.com. It's Monstro, BIZARRO.com. I have a Fouke Monster website that I put up, and it's got little extra information that's not in the book, and some videos and some other cool stuff, and that's FoukeMonster.net. FOUKE monster.net. So if you hit Monstro Bizarro or FoukeMonster.net, either one of those are all linked up with my greater network of sites, which includes my band Ghoultown.com. Or you could go to Google and search Lyle Blackburn, and I think I come up number one currently. So I guess a lot of people's been hitting my site. So you can find me out there, and I got a blog and all kinds of stuff. So definitely pick up a copy of the book. The reviews I've gotten so far have been excellent. It's definitely entertaining. Even if you haven't seen the movie or what, it's a good book if you're interested in spooky stories, horror movie history, and cryptozoology. It's all that stuff and more.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming on and talking about the book and whatever else we got into. I had a lot of fun talking to you, especially about, the Fouke Monster, but everything else was a pleasure as well. Thank you for coming on, Lyle.
Definitely. Thanks for having me.
Anytime. We're going to go take one last break here, and I'll wrap the show up. We're going to play Southern Witch by Ghoultown, Lyle's band. If you like any of the music, you can certainly pick that up as well.
Hey everyone, Jim Mallard here from the Mallard Report, and you're listening to The Grand Dark Conspiracy on the Shark Radio Network. Did you miss Dave Considine's This Day in Paranormal? If you did, you're missing out.
Well, I want to thank Lyle Blackburn for coming on the Grand Dark Conspiracy and talking about the Fouke Monster. And his book is The Beast of Boggy Creek, the true story of the Fouke Monster. Also, he does a lot of stuff. I posted all the websites in the chat room, and he is also, in the band Ghoul Town, and that's all the music tonight. If you like that, certainly I have links up to all his endeavors at granddarkconspiracy.com. So if you want to find out more about him, you want to get a hold of the book or his music, easy enough, granddarkconspiracy.com. Yeah, I love the music. It's kind of like a gothic spaghetti western rock band. It's pretty awesome. Love the liner, Jim. Thanks for that. We'll be hearing that every Tuesday night. And, of course, next Monday night, here on the Shark Radio Network, immediately following Sports Talk Soup with Eric Schultes at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we will start the week off with an interesting guest, Mike Peralta. And we're going to be talking about his book, Hell Testimonies. We'll be talking about hell and damnation and fire and brimstone, I imagine. So if you want to get in on that conversation, it should be a scary good time. And then next Tuesday, we'll have Dr. Joy Pugh on. And we're going to be talking about a really happy topic, the end of the world and Armageddon. So I'm bringing you hell, damnation, and destruction all next week, bringing you right into the month of April. I hope you all enjoyed tonight's interview, and hopefully we'll have Lyle back on as he endeavors to bring us even more cryptozoological information about his area. But next week, Mike Peralta, Hell Testimonies on Monday, and Dr. Joy Pugh, The End of the World and Armageddon. So we're going to have lots of fun. And maybe sometime, we will get the bloopers of This Day in Paranormal History on. I don't know. We shall see. But we'll figure all that out later. I would love to be on every night. Oh, it's like a pug. Thanks. I'm a short-nosed, stinky dog. Thanks, Dr. Kimberly, for coming out. Thanks, Lex May and Kay and Dave Considine and Barbie Hyde and everybody else who joined us in the chat room tonight, joined in on the conversation of Grand Dark Conspiracy. Until next week, next Monday night, everybody have a great week and keep conspiring. Provided by the Media Music Network and Music Alley, Dan Swano, Agua da Anik, Make Home Records, Nate Ashley, Frontiers Records, Radiant Records, Ray Wiley Hubbard, and Soviet Records. Grand Dark Conspiracy theme song, Looky There, performed by Jonathan Bouts.